RevOps AF, the only podcast for people who are RevOps AF and want to learn all about things that are RevOps AF.
Our goal is to give the revenue operations community, that includes marketing, sales, and CS, for any of you not paying attention, the skills needed to accelerate their careers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOps AF, the podcast, where we sit down with people who are RevOps AF and talk to them all about things that are RevOps AF. I'm your co-host, Matthew Volm, CEO and founder of RevOps Co-op, a global community of 18,000 plus operators from every nook and cranny of the world. And today we are actually sitting down with one of our community members, Jared Barol, who has a whole slew of experience. He has worked at early stage companies, mid-market companies, enterprise, large companies like Salesforce. And today we're going to be talking about different types of operators. Specifically, Jared has some unique insights into hiring for different types of people or capabilities at different stages and sizes of companies. And he's put together a very unique and valuable framework that we're going to talk through that will help you understand maybe what type of operator you are and how you can leverage that to best grow in your career. Or if you're looking to hire for your own revenue operations team, you can use this framework to help figure out what sort of capabilities should you be looking for in certain people. And so, Jared, hello, welcome, my friend. Thank you for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and specifically this kind of archetype matrix framework that you've developed? What was the catalyst for that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, thank you very much for having me here. And we've talked a lot about different journeys people have, and I've certainly had a very different journey into revenue operations than many. I started my career studying languages, actually. And as a side note, three of the best RevOps leaders I know all started in the same place. We all started studying other languages and working abroad for various reasons. And it's an interesting channel. We're going to come back to that in a second. So I started that. I was an entrepreneur for almost a decade, started 6 different companies, lived in 4 different countries over that time period. And then during that time, I had every sales job that there is, from SDR to AE, first line, second line, third line sales leader. I ran a marketing team for a while as well, into pre-sales, managed the pre-sales team, spanned the gamut, enablement I had as well, all the different functions in the sales org before moving into, initially a product strategy role, and then product, and then go-to-market strategy, and then adding on operational chunks to it over my career. And, again, private, public, private equity, mid-market venture, early stage venture, I've kind of seen it all. And one of the things that kind of occurred to me is, up until a certain point, I didn't really know who to hire. What should I hire first? What should I hire second? Because you're building teams fast, and you always get that question from the budgetary authority, what do you need? And you kind of stutter because the answer is 2 things. Well, I need to solve this tactical problem, but I also have these capability gaps, and which of those 2 things is going to be more important for me in the long term? And I kind of realized that we can all do anything for a certain period of time to a certain depth. The important thing is to make sure that we are restricting what that anything that we're doing is to whatever the outputs, capability outputs of our organization are at that time, the needs are of the organization at that time, on one side. And then on the other side, what's compatible with us? If you're a numbers guy, you don't use better words to talk you poetic quants for the MBA. Mm-hmm. So what are these different things that exist within operations functions? And that's sort of where this came from. Is I believe that businesses are built around capabilities, not people. People bringing different capabilities to the business, which then meet the business needs. And then you could say, yes, the business needs people, but people are bringing capabilities with them. And so what you need are sets of different capabilities to make a team of any type, operations, finance, doesn't matter, function. Capabilities will differ, the frameworks are the same. And so when I think a lot about what that really means, when you get down to it, is a venture-backed startup, the outputs that the operational team they're going to have there are going to vary wildly from a public $100 billion market cap enterprise SaaS company. And so what capabilities, what outputs are needed will then determine the capabilities. And so came up with a couple different frameworks here. The OPS framework came from one of the former operating partners at Marlin Equity, a guy named AJ Gandhi. There's three different functions in RevOps. There's operations, performance, and strategy. The operations is the analytics, it's the tools and the systems. Performance is the measurement, the enablement, performance management. And then strategy is where to go, how to win, where to play, how to win. In an early stage company, the strategic function is really just reporting the news, best case scenario. This is our revenue. This is how many customers we have. Whereas at a much later stage company, that might be more, what does our competitive map look like? Where's our white space? What acquisition strategy might better serve us? What's our internationalization or our vertical strategy? That's an example of how that could differ. And you can see how the different capabilities are, and the strengths in those different functions might change over time.
Yeah. So things certainly change a lot as you grow and scale. I know I've been at early stage companies, I've been at later stage companies as well. And to your point, the things that you care about are very, very different. I've also been in the same exact situation that you mentioned before, where you start moving from being this team of one to now starting to have some budget or additional resources that you can go out and get, and ask myself that same question of like, how do I fill the gaps that I have? I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm bad at. I know the things the business needs. There's a lot to consider there. And so in typical MBA fashion, you did what every MBA student or graduate would do. You created a 2x2, right? Also, I'm a fellow MBA grad, so, I love it. Yep. Go Bears. So tell us about the 2x2 that you have. What's there and how should people think about this kind of 2x2 matrix?
Yeah. So the 2x2 covers the focus of an individual. Are you more technology focused or more business focused? Are you more tactical in the weeds, thinking about the specific steps to get a task or a process, a procedure completed? Are you strategic, thinking more about here's where we need to end up, here's the rough roadmap to there? And I think that everyone can plot themselves on that graph. With the x-axis, the tech to business, y-axis, tactical, strategic. And you plot yourself on that 2x2, and you start coming up with these different capability types, personality types, which some might say, hey, that's actually a job type. I would differ. I would, slightly argue with the idea that this is a job type, because I think that the function of job types in RevOps is going to change as well over the next couple of years. But I think a lot about, if you're a strategic thinker, but really tech focused, you may have come from a systems architecture background. Maybe you were an enterprise architect before switching into an operations role at some point. Or maybe you grew up in a sales ops tech role, but then you went and got a graduate degree in something and you started thinking more about how business might function. You start moving a little bit further in that direction and a little bit more strategic. And you start, again, consider you a systems architect. Whereas someone who's really strategic, really business focused, the phrase that I use is growth catalyst. You're really good at the vision of where things should go and what the business outcomes and outputs need to be. Whereas on the tactical side of this, insights and operations is a great tactical, tech-focused kind of bubble that I see. So the folks who we hired to put together the reports that we need to understand our business and put together the data architecture that we need, it's a very critical role. And then the tactical business focus side of it is sort of the partner to that person, which is almost like the business analyst called go-to-market operator in our framework, understanding what those specific data points, insights, trends are implying, and then what we should do about it.
Yeah. And so we have, all right, so tech-focused and strategic, you're a systems architect. Business-focused and strategic, you're a market navigator. Tech-focused and tactical, you're an execution engineer. Business-focused and tactical, you're a growth catalyst. So let's talk about if, for people who may be trying to figure out, okay, where would I plot myself in that current 2x2, and how would I potentially grow or evolve in my career if I'm in maybe one particular spot and I know that I want to get promoted, move up, continue to, kind of grow and evolve. what are the best ways for people to, I'll say plot themselves, but figure out where they should be in this matrix? And then knowing where they're at, what are the typical growth paths, or I think you call them growth wings, that each of these different archetypes or personas can take?
Clearly. So when Stephen Daniels and I were building this framework out, Stephen had the idea that we should build a test. And so we did that. We'll share the link out as well for anyone who's interested in taking it and doing their own self-analysis. And if you want to do it for your teams, I have a different panel you can do a team composition analysis as well. So feel free to reach out for that one. The short answer is take the test to see who you are. That's the easiest solution. In terms of where to grow and how to grow your career, the most important practical advice that I can give you that took me way too long to learn is you need to have a mentor who cares about you. Should be one of your managers, but doesn't have to be. Most of my managers are or were in the last jobs of their careers. Those do not necessarily always make the best mentors. They have their own priorities, buying the boat, sailing around Catalina Island, just rewatch Step Brothers, that kind of life. That might not make the best mentor for you. Or someone young and hungry actually might, even though they might not have the amount of life experiences. Get a mentor. Focus on that. That's number one. It doesn't matter where you sit in this. You need a mentor to help you navigate what is becoming a very complex world. Just because you're tactical does not mean you need to become strategic. Just because you're tech does not mean you need to become business focused. You should have a specialty, and you should understand and lean into that specialty. The way to be successful is to know where you're strong, know where you're weak, develop your weakness to a point where it's not going to harm you, but know how to hire or otherwise get the skill sets needed from that capability set that you're lacking to develop. When you can start showing that, you will be given more trust in organizations. Recently had someone say, I asked him, what does he want to hire next? And he said, I want you to tell me. It's a very good point. You need to be able to tell them where your gap is. That is the fastest way to growth. And it's almost a chicken and egg conundrum, right? But I found that approach is probably the fastest path to growth. Second, if you take the test, it'll be in what do you do next? But based on where you sit in your archetype, there are certain career paths that open up very logically. For me, I'm a growth catalyst and GC, strategic and business focused. By the way, Matt, we've updated some of the names to make them sound slightly cooler since I shared that with you.
I like it.
We're hip. We're cool. Was it 6-7 is the thing now? So, we updated that, but I'm a growth catalyst. I am a strategic and business focused operator. I come from, I was an entrepreneur. I had sales focused career and then went to business school and then learned scenario planning. I co-teach a class on red teaming once a year at Berkeley for MBA students. That's who I am. I'm not going to pretend to be someone who's in the weeds and the spreadsheets 99% of the time. That's not where I came from. Can I do it? Absolutely. I actually made a point when I was doing my MBA to learn those skill sets because you can't be one-sided. But it's okay to keep growing in that direction. I find that many people who are like me end up being in either a CRO position or a COO and president position with some kind of revenue target attached to them. I see that actually a lot. Some really good examples out there of some great operators who have grown up in that direction. Whereas on the other side, I have a friend and mentor who definitely came up in the tactical and tech world, the side ops side, and multiple times started his own company because it's a product. Effectively, he's a product manager at heart, and he goes kind of in between the inside ops and strategic architect role. He can build the architecture, he can distill the data, and that's a product manager almost at heart. And so he's gone and started his own companies, tech companies a few times, but between RevOps founder. And so seen that happen a couple of times. But take the test. There's more detail, like more specifics of what career growth is, as well as what to look out for. What are the gotchas?
Yeah. And I think that's the gotchas are important.
Gotchas are important.
Yeah. And as a systems architect, for example, you talk about some of the gotchas being over engineering. As a growth catalyst, you talk about some of the watchouts being things like project sprawl or pilots with no kill criteria. Inside ops, watchouts are, a report factory without decisions, dashboard sprawl, metric of the month. And if you're a go-to-market operator, watch outs are, policy cop energy. I like that. Blocking versus enabling. So they're, again, like, these things are not meant to indicate like anything is better or worse. We all have our strengths. We all have those things that we're good at. We also all have things that we're not good at and things that are weaknesses that we know we should watch out for. And your job as a leader within revenue operations is to really understand where you're strong and then also how to build a team around you that has all the capabilities that you and the business needs. And we hit on this a little bit at the beginning. We were talking about some of the different types of capabilities, problems that need to be solved as you're at different sizes or stages of companies. And so I know part of the work that you did was also try to figure out, hey, based on the stage or maybe the ARR range, what's the ideal mix of these different archetypes that you want within your team? Why are they different and why are they the way that they are? And then what are some of the risks if you don't have them balanced? So talk a little bit about how people can think about the different stages of companies and then how they should find that ideal mix of capabilities based on the different archetypes that you have here.
So let's break it down into 5 different buckets. There's the pre-revenue, your first $1 million, first $2 million. You're going to get, you don't need a RevOps role in that one typically. You should be focused on figuring out what your product is and what you're selling. Once you figure out what your product is, once you figure out a sales pitch that works, once people start to actually buy up and your pipeline is starting to grow organically, your sales velocity is increasing, maybe have a few reps now, and you want to start figuring out how to optimize. Let's say you're hitting $10 million in revenue, $15 million in revenue. You're in that kind of Series A, Series B. I focus more on the vision of where you make sure you're hiring people who can see where they want the puck to go. So you're hiring more of those growth catalysts or the GTM operators from our framework, less of the tech specific folk, I think, at this point. Why? You're going to over-engineer things when you need to be flexible. If you focus way more on the tech and tactical side of it, you're going to have 100 dashboards that no one's looking at because the data is going to change drastically. The product's still going to change. Your ICP is probably going to change. You're going to have uber-engineered stage gating. It's something I see a lot in early stage companies when they lean heavy on tactical and tech. Instead, I think it's better to focus on, people who have maybe come from the background of their customers. If you have a PLG company heavily focused on marketing, I would look for a RevOps person who came from marketing, frankly. Someone who's strategic, business-minded, has already been in the seat of their customers and can go really fast. Like, okay, I've seen this framework work. We're going to pilot it. We're going to time box it. We're going to see if it works. And I know what to look for because I've been in that seat before. That's the type of person you want early on. That is not the same as if you were to, move later, let's say $20 to $100 million, that, growth stage of a business. You kind of want to start flattening out that org from a capability standpoint. You need to have people putting bumpers around the processes that you're rolling out. People who are actually closing and killing pilots when they're not working. People who are focused way more on that execution. And then again, you keep kind of sliding more towards the technical and tactical as the company grows. Late growth, that mid-market, 100 to 500, $750 million-ish range. We're going to see a lot more systems architects because now what you need to do is architect for public company scale. The number for going public going up from 300 to 500 million now. We're seeing more and beyond, which means that the profile that you need at that stage is someone who thinks in terms of repeatable, scalable processes. A lot less of the new experiments, a lot more of the how can we optimize this so it costs us less and reduces the risk of things breaking. And you keep going in that direction, post-public or very large private. Your focus is identifying problems before they start, identifying opportunities before they're actually there, not breaking anything. And then also you can start trying to fight the innovator's dilemma by injecting a little bit more innovation onto this team. But the innovation really should be, customer driven at this point and product driven, I think, as well, is what we see. The RevOps team at that stage of a company should be there to make sure that your sales team is running efficiently and your marketing team is as well, and your CS team as well, that you have a very clear acquisition to retention and expansion pipeline that you can benchmark it and you can know really fast if something's working or not. That's the goal at the last stage. But you can see how it's wildly different from that Series A.
It makes a lot of sense. And I know that's what I've always told people as well when they've asked me the question of hiring, or actually I talked to a lot of people about like their next role. Like a lot of people that are part of RevOps Co-op are, trying to navigate their own careers. Whenever I talk about the differences between working for those earlier stage companies and those later stage larger companies, I bring up the same sorts of things. As you get larger, there's a lot more risk associated with things going wrong. And so you really want to systematize and figure out how to scale the things that are working, and the experimentation and the move fast, break things mentality. That's not the stuff that will work at those larger sorts of enterprises. And so what are some of the risks that companies could have, or revenue operations leaders could have at these different stages if they don't have the right mix, if the team and the structure that they have in place is unbalanced? What can go wrong?
Good point. Yeah, I think everyone's going to identify with them at some point in their career. Early stage, you risk over systematizing things. How many Series A companies do you know that have they hire a really great RevOps leader, it'd be a little too early, and all of a sudden they have this just over-engineered bureaucratic system through all the way from lead to RevRec. That's a big risk. And it really slows GTM traction, where if you slow it down, you can die as a company. And I've seen that twice recently in companies I can think of. Is you kind of move into that growth stage where you do want to start injecting more and more of the tactical roles. If you have too many, you're going to have chaos when trying to scale. You're going to have spikes of utilization on your team. But if you have too many strategic roles, you're going to be lagging on execution. So that's a really tight balance. Just a piece of advice there. I had a consulting firm a while ago, and I would focus on trying to have 80% capacity on customer-facing work for each of my consultants, roughly 20% for internal and innovation. And I think that in a RevOps function, it's probably a good number to have as a blended average over the course of a year. So if you see that your people are 4 days a week, they're heads down on the core function on their asks from their customers, 1 day a week, they're innovating, developing, and pushing the business forward, that's probably a good number to have. If you start seeing 5 days a week, more focused on just firefighting, you probably don't have enough tactical people in your team. In terms of larger companies, there's two things here. This is where it's really delicate and it's really company specific, because again, if you overweight on your architecture or your insights side of this, you're going to slow down the pivots you need. And you're going to see companies between $100 and $500 million revenue go through 2 to 3 major pivots, typically. Not always, but typically. And if you're overweight on that architecture and process design, it's going to be hard to track the outcome of those. I saw this at a turnaround a few years ago that we had to re-engineer the go-to-market stack in 2 months because we wanted to roll out an ABM play there. And it was very difficult to do because of the people involved with this across multiple different teams, under the CFO and the CRO, CMO, who had very different objectives. One thing I say here is by the time you get to that late growth, you should consolidate this group. Or before that, yes, something might live under the CFO, COO, CRO, CMO, CCO, whatever. By this late growth stage, you want to consolidate it, because if you do not all have the same vision, all of the executioners, that's the wrong word. All the operators in your business don't have the same vision. You're going to be running in different directions and slow down your business. And I've seen this a number of times. Finally, as you get into that larger enterprise, public company size, strategic overweight without the innovation vision type capability, you are going to have field disengagement. They're going to see all this work that they need to do without understanding the why behind it. And they're going to do it. I think, everyone likes to laugh about how A's, won't listen to the enablement or won't follow the process. It's their fault things aren't in the app. It's not their fault. It's your fault, because you made it too difficult for them to do without explaining the why and why it matters. Yeah. And so that can reduce in less visibility to the business, which in turn can reduce in poor performance, revenue dips, and inefficiency across your organization.
Yeah, which are obviously all things you certainly don't want. So makes a lot of sense. And I know, like you said, we are going to drop the link to the test and some of these resources in the show notes and also in the write-up that we do. But I have two more just kind of rapid fire questions for you before we wrap up, which aren't really related to anything that we've talked about, but they are RevOps related. So I'm going to ask you them. All right. So we're sitting here right now. It is the last day of October of 2025 as we do this recording. So my first question, what is the thing that you're seeing in the market today as it relates to revenue operations and or AI that is the most annoying thing and bothers you the most?
You know where this is going, Matt. This question triggers me. So we get cycles in our industry where a problem appears, and instead of trying to solve the problem with existing resources, we create a new role to solve it. And sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. I was at Salesforce for a very long time, and it was a great experience. And I used to love one of our slides in the first call deck. That was the rise of the count of system admins and the people with certifications in Salesforce. I used to love that slide. I took this validation. When I left Salesforce, went to the other side as a buyer, it annoyed me because now what I'm reading is, oh, I need this many people to learn to use this product. Here's my business costs. And I'm seeing it again with how a lot of companies are deploying what is today being called go-to-market engineers. I want to caution people about this. I'm not saying, before I get into that there's no need for that role. I'm saying that what I see in the utilization, I think is somewhat wasteful. These should not be one-off people whose only job is to do prompt engineering and interface with their product team. That, before prompts were a thing, that was the job of your sales ops team and your sales ops admin. They were supposed to go into the field and sit down with the seller, learn what the seller needs. They were supposed to then go and talk to your IT team, figure out requirements on the IT side. I would say before hiring someone new, try and use the team you have to solve the problem. Because what the job description that you hired these people for 5 years ago, it doesn't exist today. We're in a different world. Instead of hiring people for this new job description, I would evaluate your team and have some hard conversations around capabilities on your team with the people you're concerned about and either upskill or change to make sure you have the right people. I don't think we need to hire more people to solve the same problem.
Yeah. All right. My second question is, when you and I get together in 12 months from today, so fast forward a year, what do you think the next year will look like for revenue operators? When we're sitting here at the end of 2026 and we're looking back, what's your prediction? What do you see happening? What do you see not happening?
Yeah. It's so hard to answer that question because the rate of change. This is not going to be a surprise. I think AI is going to change a lot. It's hard to know how much in what period of time. We overestimate what we can do in a year, underestimate what we can do in 10 is the common refrain, right? I think that we overestimate what we can do in 6 months, underestimate what we can do in a year at this point, with the rate of change because of a lot of this AI deployment. So it's hard for me to have a good answer to that. The one thing I am certain of, though, and I would place a bet on this by dinner if I'm wrong, is we are going to be able to execute the set of objectives that before may have required a larger RevOps team or a lower ratio of ops to customer internally than we will in a year or a year and a half from now. I think that what we saw is like a 1-30, 1-50 ratio during the build out is going to become 1-30, 1-50. I'm already seeing that. And I think the efficiency driven private equity models that I'm seeing are probably going to be more right. I'm seeing a couple teams right now that are Series B that are focused on how do I drive efficiency from an operations team that reduces administrative burden for my go-to-market organization, reduce administrative burden for my operations organization, gets people out of that work by doing a lot of the engineering and the piping early, focused on building out agents that actually do something. Mm-hmm. And so that's the direction I think our industry is going. I think that if we all stay focused on, learn Marketo, learn HubSpot, learn Salesforce, we're going to be out of a job. I think we need to focus more on how can I think about the capabilities of my business? How can I do these capabilities with fewer tools, fewer people, fewer dollars. And the outcome of that is going to be smaller RevOps teams for larger sales, marketing, and CS organizations.
Yeah. And I think, if you talk to anyone in any space, whether you're in marketing, sales, revenue operations, finance, accounting, I think you'll probably hear that same sort of thing where we are going to become more efficient, more productive. And those numbers you're talking about, that will eventually be the new normal, right? And then who knows when the next technology wave is going to come to even make us more efficient, right? And then we'll be looking back at this conversation and being like, man, do you remember when we thought, that was stressful, that sort of ratio, right? Look at us now. So, yeah. Well, Jared, thank you very much, my friend, for walking us through the different archetypes, how people can leverage that information to grow within their own career and then grow and evolve their own revenue operations team. This was awesome, but that's all I got for you, man. Thank you very much for dropping some knowledge, and I'll let you run. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode, everybody.
For more great content like this, join our community at RevOpsCoop.com and check out the links provided in the show notes.
Keep it RevOpsAF, y'all.